Good afternoon to everyone. I want to I want to share a sutta this afternoon, and I want to read the Majjhima Nikaya number 59, Bahuvedaniya Sutta. The many kinds of feelings is also a sutta that I included in my book, The Happy Dhamma. And this sutta is talk about the jhanas, the meditation process, and of course, the feeling of or Vedana, the present experience. So I want to read directly from the book because find, I don't found, I don't have found the um, the Bhikkhu Bodhi translation on internet. So this have I heard. Oh, one more thing. I remember that for Bhante Vimalaramsi, this sutta was one of their most beloved, and for me, it was always a very beautiful sutta. Thus have I heard on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Sawati, Jeta's Grove, and at Apindika's Park. Then the carpenter Panchakanga went to the Venerable Udayin, and after paying homage to him, he sat down at one side and asked him, Venerable Sir, how many kinds of feelings has been stated by the Blessed One? The carpenter Panchakanga was uh, a carpenter that I think that he made all the reparation for the monastery. So, Venerable Sir, how many kinds of feelings has been stated by the Blessed One? Oh, and another thing, generally, these Panchakanga have access to hear the Dhamma talks. So, I think he was, I don't know if he has had some kind of attainment, but he was apparently he well known the Dhamma. Venerable Sir, how many kinds of feelings have been stated by the Blessed One? Three kinds of feelings have been stated by the Blessed One householder: pleasant feeling, painful feeling, and neither painful nor pleasant feeling. These three kind of feeling have been stated by the Blessed One. Not three kind of feeling have been stated by the Blessed One, Venerable Udayin. Two kind of feelings have been stated by the Blessed One: pleasant feeling and painful feeling. This neither painful nor pleasant feeling has been stated by the Blessed One as a peaceful and sublime kind of pleasure. So, um, in this case, we have two different opinions, and we'll see how the Buddha resolved this question. A second time and a third time, the Venerable Udayin stated his position, and a second time and third time, the carpenter Panchakanga stated his. But the Venerable Udayin could not convince the carpenter Panchakanga, nor could the carpenter Panchakanga convince the Venerable Udayin. The Venerable Ananda heard their conversation, then he went to the Blessed One, and after paying homage to him, he sat down at one side and reported to the Blessed One the entire conversation between the Venerable Udayin and the carpenter Panchakanga. When he has finished, the Blessed One told the Venerable Ananda, Ananda, it was actually a true presentation that the carpenter Panchakanga would not accept from Udayin, and it was actually a true presentation that Udayin would not accept from the carpenter Panchakanga. I have stated two kinds of feeling in one presentation, and I have stated three kinds of feelings in another presentation. I have stated five kinds of feelings in another presentation. I have stated six kinds of feelings in another presentation. I have stated 18 kinds of feelings in another presentation, and I have stated 36 kinds of feelings in another presentation. I have stated 180 kind of feelings in another presentation. That is how the Dhamma has been shown by me in a different presentation. So as we see, the Buddha here is give a full landscape of how he have presented the feeling, the Vedana. So we have the first part that said I have stated two kind of feelings in the presentation, that is painful feeling and pleasure feeling. And the Carpenter Panchakanga, in his statement, said that this neither painful nor pleasant feeling has been stated by the Blessed One as peaceful and sublime kind of pleasure. So he is talking about equanimity that we're going to see after. Uh, I have stated three kind of feelings in another presentation. This is painful feeling, pleasant feeling, and neither painful nor pleasant feeling. I have stated five kind of feeling in other presentation. This could be related to the uh, the five senses. I have stated six kinds of feelings in another presentation. This could be related to the sixfold basis. So it's the five senses plus the mind. I have another. I have heard another commentary about this, that it also could be pleasant feeling, painful feeling. It could be pleasant, spiritual pleasant feeling, or pleasant sensual feeling. And this could be the pleasant spiritual feeling jhana, or pleasant sensual feeling, that is could be any of the five uh, senses, like beautiful sight, beautiful song, etc. Painful feeling, spiritual painful feeling, that is related to the pain that maybe could arise during the meditation. And sensual painful feeling is, I don't know if it's something that is not in good shape, or if I uh, bumping my toes with a bed. And the other two are nor pleasant nor painful feeling, that is spiritual, that is equanimity, and nor pleasant nor painful feeling, uh, sensual, that is indifference. The indifference always have certain amount of aversion, and generally is something that I felt, but I deny it. So there is some kind of aversion. Then we have, I have stated 18 kind of feelings in another presentation. This could be pleasant, um, pleasant, unpleasant, and neither pleasant nor unpleasant feeling in the uh, six sense basis. And others, I have stated 36 kind of feelings in another presentation. I think that is related to, if I'm not mistaken, past, present, and future in the three kinds of feelings, and in the six sense basis, past, present, and future. And I don't remember the last one, 108 kinds of feelings. So with this, the Buddha covers everything. So when the Dhamma the important thing in this presentation is that the Buddha have different answer depending on who was listening to him. And this is very important because this make us an image of how wonderful teacher he was. And especially he was very, he had such a knowledge of the human mind that he could recognize in his student what was their resources and capabilities. When the Dhamma has thus been shown by me in different presentations, it may be expected of those who will not concede, allow, and accept what is well stated and well spoken by others, that they will take to quarreling, brawling, and disputing, stabbing each other with verbal daggers. But it may be expected of those who concede, allow, and accept what is well stated and well spoken by others, that they will live in concord with mutual appreciation without disputing, blending like milk and water, viewing each other with kindly eyes. So here the Buddha is talking about something really important, that it's no matter what our opinion are, we have to be open to listen what um, other people say. So we don't have to be agree or disagree. And regarding the Dhamma, we have to listen and then we have to check it out with the suttas. Sometimes many teachers have different way to expose the Dhamma, or of course, a very personal way to explain the suttas, and they are their talks is grounded in the suttas, but everyone maybe expose the the Dhamma in a different way. But if we investigate and we find that they are harmony between the suttas and the teacher, then we can accept that teaching. And of course, there are other aspects too that we have to consider. And by this, I meant that it's really important that we consider our own experience. So we always have to check it out with our own experience and then go to the suttas and try to find relationship between them and see what is the Buddha teaching us and how our practice goes. So if we are enough open to hear a Dhamma talk, and maybe we hear with a mind imbued of loving kindness, we maybe could learn something and we can get benefit for our practice. And if we found that there is not much with the suttas and the teacher, okay, we just move on and continue with our own practice. And then there are 5 cores of sensual pleasure. There are 5 forms cognizable by the ear that are wished for, desire, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of lust. Sounds cognizable by the ear, odors cognizable by the nose, flavors cognizable by the tongue, tangibles cognizable by the body, that are wished for, desires, agreeable, and likable, connected with sensual desire and provocative of lust. These are the 5 cores of sensual pleasure. Now, the pleasure and joy that arise dependent on these 5 cores of sensual pleasure are called sensual pleasure. So, here the Buddha state that what are the 5 cores of sensual pleasure. And of course, here is a state that they are composed of 2 things, an eye, and that are wished for or desire for a form. Yeah, and every other, the ear, the nose, the taste, the body, trying to feel a beautiful or uh, desirable experience. That is, and here the sutta says that connected, all of these are connected with sensual desire and provocative of lust. So this is when someone get in touch with something that is pleasure, that give them pleasure, the lust arises. Is that we talk about in different talks, is the sign of attractiveness. So there is nothing wrong to experience a beautiful sight, but when this beautiful sight is over, it's over. We have to be mindful about it, and this is the same with the other sensual doors. Sorry, not sensual doors. With the other doors. Uh, so we have to be very careful about this. Now I want to do a comment, but let's move on. Should anyone say that is the utmost pleasure and joy that beings experience, I would not concede that to him. Why is that? Because there is another kind of pleasure, loftier and more sublime than that pleasure. And what is that another kind of pleasure? Here, Ananda? While secluded from sensual pleasure, secluded from unwholesome state, a bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure born of reclusion. This is that the other kind of pleasure, loftier and more sublime than the previous pleasure. So the Buddha said that anyone said that the utmost pleasure and joy that being experience is the sensual pleasure, he is not agree with. Why is that? Because he knows that is something that is beyond the sensual experience. And here start the with this we started with the jhanas. So now we are going to comment a little about this. So here Ananda, quite secluded from sensual pleasure, secluded from unwholesome state. This is a very important statement because, first of all, quite secluded from sensual pleasure. We have to understand that jhana, what jhana means. Jhana is one of the most controversial terms or concept in the Buddhist tradition. There are some definitions that jhana is like trance or absorption jhana, and this definition is related to the commentary, especially the Visuddhimagga. And also there are previous to the Buddha's time, there were also this kind of jhana, this kind of absorption jhana. In fact, the Buddha practiced some kind of absorption jhanas, and he recognized it that this kind of practice doesn't lead to the emancipation, to the liberation, to nibbana. So here inside of twin practice, we take a different concept of jhana, and jhana could mean state of understanding, state of consciousness, and I also very much like this definition that jhana is a different way of thinking, but not thinking in an intellectual way. It's a different way of the process of the mind. So because the word state always turn to make us think about something that we achieve. And here we describe the jhanas like it was some state to achieve and not a process, a refiner process of the mind that when we go deep in our meditation, this process is refiner. So when we define the jhana as a refined process of the mind, we are saying that that action, that mind action that occur during the meditation is of course conditioned, so it's impermanent, but also is different from the sensual uh, doors. And I want to be very clear about this because the formula said quite secluded from sensual pleasure. So this said quite secluded from sensual pleasure. So it's not secluded from uh, the sensual doors. So in the first jhana, our 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 five senses is still uh, we are still aware of what's going on. We are not in a trance that we don't feel and we repress everything to focus or over focus in our object of meditation. So we are secluded from sensual pleasure. That will mean that we are not go after the the sensual data. We are with our object of meditation, and we can hear maybe a sound, and our mind moves and returns to our objects of meditation. That is like a movement of the perception aspect of our mind. So we don't need to apply the 6 R's because the mind is just the perception that moving from that stimulus and return by itself. Also, quite secluded, it means that when we start to meditate, we close our eyes and our sight disappear. Our sight is not longer engaged with the form. Secluded from unwholesome state, it means that we don't, in that moment, we don't have any hindrances in our mind. That again is not that the mind is so uh, immersed with the object of meditation that repress the hindrances. We have a gentle touch with the object of meditation, and this gentle touch allows that the mind be stable over the object of meditation. A bhikkhus enter upon an abyss in the first jhana. So here is what I said before. This definition is we enter in some state of mind, and it's okay if we understand this as a process. But if we think about the jhana as a refiner process, means that the mind is refiner in his process, is more stable, is more like say the formula, which is accompanied by applying and sustained thought. What is this? I apply my thought, I have the intention to stay with my object of meditation, and I stay with that object of meditation. Sometimes this could be helpful to say some phrases in our mind. May my mind be happy, may my mind be peaceful, and this kind of verbal thoughts maybe could uh, it's helpful to stay with the object of meditation without too much effort. So again said with rapture and pleasure born from seclusion. So as we stay with our object of meditation without pushing it, we start to feel rapture or joy and pleasure or happiness. We feel very comfortable in our body, and this is very important. When some student uh, experience the first jhana, he feels really happy and it's a great experience uh, uh, with a lot of insight because he or she can recognize that he can achieve not a state, but that the mind, when is has um, a wholesome direction, in the mind could arise this process of rapture and happiness. So here we have the first level of cessation. The five hindrances are no more. Of course, this maybe we can stay with our objects of meditation 2, 3 minutes or 5 minutes. It depends the situation. If we are in a retreat or is our daily meditation, and it's very different. And if you experience one of these uh, states or this kind of refiner process of mind, you could ask your teacher and see or expect different instructions. Or no, maybe the teacher said, "Oh, you are doing great. Please continue." So this is that other kind of pleasure, laughter, are more sublime than the previous pleasure. So for the Buddha, the first jhana is an uplifting experience compared with the sensual pleasure. Should anyone say that is the utmost pleasure and joy that beings experience, I would not concede that to him. Why is that? Because there is another kind of pleasure, loftier and more sublime than that pleasure. And what is that other kind of pleasure? Here, Ananda, with the stealing of applied and sustained thought, a bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the second jhana, which has self-confidence and silentness of mind, without applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure born of concentration. This is that other kind of pleasure, loftier and more sublime than the previous pleasure. So, here the Buddha is described the second jhana. And here the formula is stealing of applying and sustained thought. So if we have some kind of verbalization in our mind, they're going to stop. So in the first jhana, the five hindrances stops, and here is the um, apply and sustain thought. This is what is the meaning of this? The mind has enough energy to stay with the object of meditation, and we don't need more that kind of apply and sustain thought. So we don't need more vitaka and vichara. When we experience the second jhana, we're going to feel maybe that piti, rapture, is stronger than in the first jhana. Why is that? Because in the first jhana, piti or rapture is born from seclusion. And in this second jhana, the piti is born from collectedness. So the mind is more collectedness, and this brings more energy to the mind. And this generally expressed by feeling joy. The other word, pleasure or happiness, is sukha in Pali. Sukha is comfort, not only mind comfort, but also body comfort. So we gain self-confidence and singleness of mind. So the mind, we feel very confident. We feel that we are in a good path. And this is a beautiful experience too. Um, should anyone say, and what is that other kind of pleasure? So he again, the Buddha state that if someone think about that the second jhana is the best of the happiness, he is not agree. Here, Ananda, with the fading away as well of rapture, a bhikkhu abides in equanimity, mindful and fully aware, and still feeling pleasure with the body. He enters upon and abides in the third jhana, on account of which noble ones announce. He has a pleasant abiding who has equanimity and is mindful. This is that other kind of pleasure, loftier and more sublime than the previous pleasure. So, let's see. In the second jhana, the mind generally also it's all of the time reference that I give in this talk. Please, you have to be very careful about it because is mm, always conditioned by the situation in which you are practicing. It's not the same for a beginner, for an intermediate practitioner, or an advanced meditator. And this also have other conditions, like if you are in a retreat or if you are in your daily practice. So, in the second jhana, maybe your meditation uh, during last about 1 hour and 1 hour and 10 minutes or 15 minutes is this depend. And generally, maybe you could say about 5 minutes with the object of meditation. In the third jhana, this uh, time is more open. Maybe you can sit 1 hour, 1 hour and 15 minutes or 10 minutes. And maybe the time in which you are with your object of meditation is longer, 7 minutes, five, it depends. But let's see what the formula said. Here and end up with the fading away as well of rapture. So when we experience the third jhana, we are going to feel that the piti, the rapture, fade away. And if we are not, if you are a little attached to that feeling, maybe we try to sustain that feeling. If you try to do that, you probably will go out of the jhana because when you start to crave that kind of joy, then you have a hindrances. You are restless at that moment, or you have doubt, and you have to seek source. We going to see that the deeper is the experience of the jhana, the calm is the experience. So here, the piti or rapture is too gross for this state of mind, for this process of the mind, and the mind become quieter. And here start to see the arising of equanimity and mindful and fully aware. In fact, in the previous channel, we also have mindfulness, but here start to arise equanimity that will be uh, a factor for all of other jhanas. So when we experience this kind of jhana, in the third jhana, we're going to feel very comfortable in our mind, in our body. We start to feel that some part of our body fades away. It's okay. It's because we don't feel any uh, stimulus. But if we some cold breeze go through our skin, we're going to feel it. If some mosquito land on our hand, we're going to feel it. So if we don't have any contact, we don't feel the body, some parts of the body. Some people report here that they feel that some part is like a stone and it's okay. Some people report that they feel that some part of the body disappear. It's okay. It's not important how this experience present to you because it's different from each other. From every person feel this experience different, but we feel more calmer, and more equanimous. So the mind will be more stable. And then the Buddha said to anyone say that this is the best experience, the happiest experience, he also not agree. Here, Ananda, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous disappearance of joy and grief, the bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana, which hath neither pain nor pleasure, and purity of mind often due to equanimity. That is, this is that other kind of pleasure, loftier and more sublime than the previous pleasure. So, here, what disappear is abandoning pleasure and pain, previous disappear of joy and grief. What is the meaning of this? Of course, when we enter in the first jhana, we disappear all of the hindrances. But when we enter in the fourth jhana, we just let it go. We start to understand that all the sensory data, when I mean then sensory, I want to also the mind experience too. We start to see that experience as just an experience, just as Vedana. Why? Because the mind is have purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. So our mindfulness is so sharp that we can see at this moment in the fourth jhana that Vedana is just Vedana, pleasure Vedana, painful Vedana, or neither painful nor pleasure, no pressure Vedana. So the mind have a stronger mindfulness, and uh, you could see this kind of you can experience this experience without being attached by it. We you could experience without craving. Of course, if you suddenly lost your mindfulness and start to crave for something or have aversion for something, you're going to went out. You're going to go out to the jhana, and you have to apply the 6 hours and return to your object of meditation. So what's going on here? Uh, Due to equanimity, we start to feel that all the body fades away, and probably we feel that our breath is very, very subtle. Sometimes even we cannot perceive it. Don't be afraid. It's a very natural state. It's just like because of the mind are so quiet and so calm that we don't feel the body, and we feel the body through our breath, because the breath is movement, and when we feel movement, we feel the body. So this is a beautiful experience. In fact, the Buddha described this jhana as the beautiful. So when we reach this jhana, and when we being able to stabilize this kind of experience, um, this is an advanced meditator, is someone who have trained enough to experience this kind of subtle experience. From here, there is different possibilities. We are going to continue with the sutta, but from the first to the fourth jhana, we can have the metta, loving kindness, as object of meditation. Now, here we have to switch gears because the mind enters, or the experience will be more subtle. So, uh, should anyone, again, the Buddha again said that there is a higher kind of pleasure. And here Ananda, with the complete surmounting of perception of form, with the disappearance or perception of sensory impact, with non-attention to perception of diversity, aware that space is infinite, a bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the base of infinite space. This is that other kind of pleasure, loftier and more sublime than the previous pleasure. So, what is this? When we reach the fourth jhana, um, the mind start to, at some point, uh, we start to feel that the loving kindness maybe is go beyond our head. Generally, between the third and the fourth jhana, maybe we feel that the loving kindness go from the heart to the head, and here in the base of infinite space, maybe we feel that the head start to open and the feelings goes in expands in every direction. But we also feel that loving kindness is subtler and more gentle, and maybe we don't feel like we are um, radiated this feeling. It's more like we feel that the feeling is in everywhere. There is no center. And this is the feeling of compassion. If loving kindness is wish happiness for everyone, compassion is the feeling of wish that all living beings abandon their suffering. And this is a very interesting experience because give us a direct experience about what compassion is, and we then have a clear experience, and we can change some concept about the compassion that many people think that is pity, and it's a very different experience, because compassion, when I feel compassion, I don't feel that I'm superior to you or inferior or equal. The compassion is the possibility to feel the suffering of others, but our minds remains equanimous and happy. So when we enter in this state, we start to feel maybe a subtle change, and the mind maybe start to feel some kind of vibrations. Uh, and this endless space and all of this experience that I talk, they are different in different people. Maybe here you can stay like in the Forjana 10 minutes without any hindrances, and you feel very comfortably with the 6 hours. When appears some hindrances, you can 6 hours and return to the object of meditation, and the mind apply the 6 hours very easily. You generally you don't feel caught up in hindrances, and you don't caught up in the explanation. So maybe you start to be aware of the movement of the mind, and then you apply the 6 hour immediately. Some students has, have reported that they start to feel that the mind is slower. All of these characteristics are different from people, for each person. So maybe we could sit a bit longer, like an hour and 15 minutes, and we start to feel a very refiner state of mind. So the process of the mind is really now softer. And also this brings us a new perspective about how much energy I need to apply in my object of meditation. Again, the Buddha said that this is not the ultimate happiness, and said, and what is that other kind of pleasure? Here, Ananda, by completely surmounting the base of infinite space, aware the consciousness is infinite, a bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the base of infinite consciousness. That this is that other kind of pleasure, loftier and more sublime than the previous pleasure. So, In the base of uh, infinite space, we have this disappearance of perception of sensory impact. So we feel that the five senses are now very, very subtle. And the previous said with no attention to perception of diversity. So we are now little by little entering a more immaterial state. So because why? Why is this? Because the infinite space is an immaterial state. We here in the previous jhana, we start to experience the ayatanas. So this is the four immaterial state. There is not jhana per se. Some some teachers said that these four ayatanas are four aspects of the four jhana. In the practical way, you're going to feel difference between them, between these four ayatanas. And if in the previous, in the infinite space, I feel this kind of space and openness, in this uh, jhana, in the infinite consciousness, maybe our perception switch a little and I start to feel that the space have subtle vibrations. It depends or of which sense door I pay attention. I we are going to feel different experience. Let me give you an example. If you go to the mind's door, maybe you start to see a flickering, flickers before your mind's uh, eye, mind's door. And if you go to your ear, you start to hear not a continuous sound, but like if it was like an echo. It's not it's ah. So we hear little spots in our ear. The same is with the nose. Maybe we start to uh, sense like a ghost sense or ghost odors. That is because the mind is in such refined state that we could see every pulse of consciousness in every sense door. This is very important because, first of all, we notice that in our mind, we only can experience one thing at a time. So if in my mind door, and I see this flickering, I'm not here at that moment. So I cannot do it, two things at the same time. It is because it's so fast that the mind think or that our intellectual mind think that it could be two things at the same time, but the experience is always one after the other. So here we are aware that this consciousness pulses occurs thousands of times in each moment. And it's due to this speed that we think that is a line, a continuous line. But the reality is that is uh, small points, one after the other. And these pulses is what we feel in every of the sense doors. So this is a direct experience of anicca, of impermanence. And every of these pulses is conditioned by the previous one or previous one at some moment in our life or lives. So we start to understand when we experience the infinite consciousness that all the time, even when we are asleep, we always feel this uh, in data impingement, and it's very tiresome because the mind is always working. Eventually, eventually, we're going to feel real tiresome of this experience. But first, I want to say something that when we enter in this ayatana, our feeling of compassion will change to mudita. Mudita is joy, all-pervading joy or empathetic joy. What is the meaning of this? Empathetic joy is feel happy and joy by the prosperity or happiness of the others. This kind of joy is different from pity, from the two first jhanas. It's more subtle, more serene, and the mind will be very, very tranquil. And it's because of this tranquility that we can see this kind of experience of the flickering of the consciousness pulses. So this is a very deep state that have a lot of lessons to teach us. Let's see. The Buddha said again that there's not the ultimate experience this and said, and what is another kind of pleasure? Here Ananda, by completely surmounting the base of infinite consciousness, aware there is nothing, a bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the base of nothingness. This is another kind of pleasure, loftier and more sublime than the previous pleasure. So, what is this? Here, at some point, we feel, like I said before, tiresome of these uh, pulses, and then the mind will go into calm, be more calmer and calmer and calmer. And at that point, we can start to see between these pulses, and we, so to speak, we enter inside the mind. Here, the experience is different for every person, but we enter in the base of nothingness. The experience could be a mind that is go to a, that the mind is shrink, not too much. Maybe it's a dark place, it's a dark uh, yeah, dark place of the mind. For some people, is bright. That is not important, but we feel very, very tranquil and an exquisite balance of the mind. This ayatana, here the meditation objects change to equanimity, and we start to feel, we start to understand what equanimity is, because the equanimity is the possibility to accept everything with an open mind. So um, when we enter, when we experience this base of nothingness, we feel we enter in a place there is nothing, no thing. So we start to see what is the meaning of an empty mind. If in the previous jhana, in the previous space of the infinite consciousness, we start to understand what anicca means, here in the base of nothingness, we start to understand what is anatta, or the impersonal process of the mind. Uh, Here the meditation maybe last 1.5 hours, 2 hours, or maybe more. This is a very interesting state of mind, or it's a very interesting process to see and to experience. Here we maybe the mind have some commentaries, very few, and this is related again to the process of perception that appears and maybe comments something about what's going on in that moment, but just arise and disappear. Here, the 6 R's are really easy to apply, and maybe we don't need to apply the 6 R. Maybe we'll just relax and back to equanimity. So, when we enter in this state, we start to understand that what is the meaning of emptiness. And this is a very advanced state of meditation. Also, I want to give a little of advice here. We have to understand that all the jhanas are just processes. It's not our jhana, even it's not our meditation. It's just a meditation, not ours. I am not the meditator. I'm just uh, it's just the experience of meditation and the experience of jhana. We don't need to be attached to this state because this state arises when the conditions are right and disappears when the conditions changes. So it's okay if we don't uh, can experience these jhanas again. We have to practice more and more to be familiar with this kind of mind process. Well, again, the Buddha said that this is not the ultimate happiness and said, and what is that other kind of pleasure? Here, um, Ananda, by completely surmounting the base of nothingness, a bhikkhu enters upon an abyss in the base of neither perception nor non-perception. This other kind of pleasure, loftier and more sublime than the previous pleasure. So we hear the mind at some moment uh, we start to this equanimity as object of meditation will going to start to fade away and the mind will be enter in a very deep silence and this silence will be our object of meditation when we experience this the last ayatana the neither perception nor non-perception at some point this silence will be uh, the mind will be more quiet and still. And at some point, we start to feel that some parts of the mind are like sleepy and the other are aware. It's a very, it's like the hypnagogic state, but it's not the same. It's more subtler. So when we enter in this state, we going to feel that this silence is our state of mind. And if we go in deep and deep in this state, we we start to know and to know knowing or recognize that the silence disappear and the mind will be our object of the meditation. So the mind is observing the mind. This is somehow the limit of the identity. And in this state, we are no longer feel any commentary. If the mind make a commentary, we at that moment we're going straight out of that jhana, so we relax and enter again the mind by itself. Here is really important to understand that we don't have to do anything. If we try to do anything, we are going out of this jhana. This is the reason that why it's called neither perception nor non-perception. This is the the title of this ayatana. The meaning is that feeling and perception have no condition to arise. From some moment there are condition and arises, and when this condition ceases, there are not feeling and perception. So we have uh, this title, neither perception nor perception, because the mind have these little gaps in the process, and when we start to be more stable in this state, we start to feel micro cessations of this flow, of this continue of consciousness or sensory perception. When we enter in this jhana, maybe we can stay half an hour, 40 minutes without any hindrances. Uh, and the meditation, uh, we maybe could meditate about 3 hours, 2.5 hours, or 4 hours because we are very comfortable. And it's a very good state to be because in this state there is nothing. So we start to understand that maybe we could be 30 minutes without any hindrances, without any activity, but the mind always pop up a formation. In this state, we can see the formations as is the sankharas. We start to see uh, the process of origination of uh, of the mind. We see the second link of dependent origination, and we start to understand that all the process of the jhanas is in reverse way. We first doing from the sensory mind to now the eighth jhana is a process of cessation. And if we look at this cessation in the opposite way, we start to understand the dependent origination. We start to see not the links, but the conditions. So this is very ironic because in our sensory world, we want to be, we want more experience. And when we crave for more experience, we feel happier. Of course, this is impermanent and ultimately suffering. But we are in the training, in the meditation training, the experience is exactly opposite. We feel more happy and more comfort with less and less and less and less and less experience. The experience are more calm, more quieter, calmer, and equanimous. If we are enough time in this state, it could happen in any of the jhanas. We start to understand that this thing that the mind have has always a comment or a formation. And we feel again a little tired about this activity. And this brings us this disenchantment of this activity because we understand that all is conditioned, even the subtlest state of mind. So, uh, should anyone say that is the utmost pleasure and joy that begins experience, I would not concede that to him. Why is that? Because there is another kind of pleasure loftier and more sublime than that pleasure. And what is that other kind of pleasure? Here, Ananda, by completely surmounting the base of neither perception nor non-perception, a beacon enters upon and abides in a cessation of perception and feeling. This is that other kind of pleasure, loftier and more sublime than the previous pleasure. So we have here talking about Nirodha Samapati. We at some point feel like a gap or a cessation, and this is the cessation of feeling and perception. So this is all the way to this kind of perception, to this kind of feeling, the relation between feeling and perception. So in the sutta, the Buddha is describing a more refined feeling. And this in this state, Nirodha Samapati, there is no feeling, there is no perception. There are some, of course, all the brain processes are active, but the mind is shut down. When we came back from this state, when we came from this Nirodha Samapati, the mind restarted. Generally, when this happened, of course, this is also is depends in each person. When we restart the mind, maybe we, because the faculties of the mind are so bright that maybe we touch with the Nirvana element. Touch with the Nirvana element is Dukkha Nirodha. At that moment, we experience Dukkha Nirodha and we feel Nibbana. We experience Nibbana. By this, I want to be very clear because after Nibbana experience, we feel joy, we feel wisdom, we maybe feel or experience wisdom, we feel a huge amount of relief, and all these processes are conditioned by the Nibbana experience, are not the Nibbana experience itself. So here the Buddha finish the sutta like this. It is possible, Ananda, that wanderers of other sects might speak this. The recluse Gautama speak of the cessation of perception and feeling, and he describes that as pleasure. This is very important because in another traditions, this experience is possible too, the cessation of perception and feeling. But maybe what is different in the Buddhism is the context. The context is really different. So, and he described that at pleasure. What is this, and how is this? Wanderers of other sects who speak thus should be told. Friends, the Blessed One describes pleasure only, not only with reference to a pleasant feeling, rather, friends, the Tathagata describes as pleasure any kind of pleasure wherever and in whatever way it is found. That is what the Blessed One said. The Venerable Ananda was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One words. The last statement of the Buddha is really interesting because, friends, the Blessed Ones describe pleasure not only with reference to pleasant feeling. So there is pleasure not only regarding the pleasant feeling, but the Tathagata describe as pleasure any kind of pleasure wherever and whatever way it is found. So I think that this statement is related to a mind that is so open and so equanimous that is secluded in itself and feel happiness and stability at any moment. Of course, here we are described the mind of an arahant. And it's not in this sutta, but it's in another sutta, the Majjhima Nikaya 111, one after the other, that in that sutta is described how Sariputta achieved nibbana and he became an arahant. So it's very important that we remember that the path to nibbana is through the jhanas. It's not that there is two ways or two different meditations. It's one meditation with two aspects that leads to the emancipation. In the last three states, we generally develop a deeper equanimity. My Spanish is go to my mind. A deeper equanimity, and that bring this disenchantment of any activity. And this, when is enough maturity, bring us um, this passion. This dispassion is when when one feels very content in the present moment. And this feel of happiness and content, it's so deep that even we can let it go our desire to achieve Nibbana, to experience Nibbana. And when we realize that we don't need nothing, and when we realize that there is only a meditation process and not a meditator, these are the conditions, ironically, that bring us this experience of Nibbana. So I hope you are enjoyed this Dhamma talk. I send you a lot of metta, and I want to share now some merit with you. I want to share the screen. May suffering one, sorry, may suffering ones be suffering free, and the fearless struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kind of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas and mighty power, share this merit of ours. May the Lord protect the Buddha dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you for this talk, for sharing this talk. I send metta to all of you. Thank you very much.